Japan Station is made possible in part by amazing people like you. If you'd like to make sure that I can keep bringing you more content about Japan, the Japanese culture, and the Japanese language, then consider joining the Patreon over at japankyo.com/Patreon. You can join for as little as $1 a month, and that will get you early access to episodes, plus ad-free versions. I also take one-time donations over on Ko-fi, Venmo, and PayPal. Links are down below.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Japan Station.
Welcome to Japan Station, the show where we cover everything you should know about Japan, plus a few other things. I'm your host, founder of japankyo.com, and the anime linguist on YouTube, Tony R. Vega. So today we are talking about climbing mountains in Japan with an expert on this subject, Wes Lang. So Wes is the creator of the Hiking in Japan blog, which he started in 2007. He also runs the Hiking in Japan YouTube channel at Hiking in Japan. He also does travel consulting through Japan Travel Consulting. And he is the first confirmed American to have climbed the hyakumēzan, or the 100 famous mountains of Japan. He is going to explain exactly what that is. He's also the first confirmed American to have climbed the highest peaks in Japan in every prefecture. We're going to be talking about that and some interesting adventures that he's had while hiking in Japan, including a very scary one that, well, he got stranded in the mountains and things could have gone very, very badly, but thankfully he made it out okay. He's got some advice and just overall some great information that for anybody that's interested in hiking, walking, even if you're not, he's got some great stories. So I think you're going to enjoy it. Don't forget to subscribe. And of course, if you're listening on any of the podcast platforms, especially Apple Podcasts, don't forget to leave a rating, a review. Either helps immensely in spreading the show, helping that it reaches more people. I would greatly appreciate it if you just take a moment right now, subscribe if you haven't already. That includes if you're on YouTube, and do anything you can to help this show grow. If you like what I do, give me a little help here in reaching more people. All right, guys, let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Wes Lang. Tell us what the hyakumēzan is, and then we'll get into your personal journey with that.
Hyakumēzan, the kanji is 100 famous mountains. So most people translate it as the 100 famous mountains of Japan. Another way to look at it is just the 100 mountains of Japan. So this is a list of 100 mountains that was created by a Japanese writer named Fukara Kyuya. He published a book in 1964 outlining this list of 100 notable mountains in the land. So they stretch from the northern part. The northernmost peak is on Lishiri Island, so Lishiri, and the southernmost is on Yakushima, so Miyanoura Dake. And his book was basically a compilation of newspaper articles that he had written through the years. And he put together this list. And it's kind of funny because a lot of people think, oh, this is the 100 best mountains in Japan. But it's actually not. It's his personal kind of subjective list that he created. And even in his book, the original Japanese book that was written, he said, by no means is this a definitive list of the best mountains. These are just 100 mountains that he happened to climb during his early days of mountaineering in Japan.
Right.
So, of course, now people think that this is the list of 100 mountains that everyone must climb.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting that list came out. Like I said, the book was published in 1964. And then the first foreigners to climb the hyakumēzan was back in 1997. There were two New Zealand hikers named Craig McLaughlin and his friend Travis. So Craig and Travis were the first. They were the first foreigners to climb the hyakumēzan, and they wanted to do it in 100 days.
Whoa.
So they said, let's climb all 100 mountains in 100 days. They were pretty lucky. They had sponsorship and they had media following back in the 90s. And they did all 100 in only 78 days.
Wow.
But yeah, they were on a mission to climb these mountains as quickly as they could. So when they climbed it in 97, they had the record for the fastest time. Now a Japanese hiker has broken that record. So they published a book. Basically, Craig published a travel log called Hyakumēzan, Japan's 100 Mountain Challenge. And this was on Johan, which is a publishing company that has gone bankrupt now. So the book is completely out of print. I found out about the hyakumēzan from Lonely Planet's Hiking in Japan guidebook. So that book was published just after I came to Japan. So I came to Japan in March of 2001. I believe this book came out maybe in April of 2001. And in the Lonely Planet Hiking in Japan guidebook, there was a sidebar or a separate box about the hyakumēzan. So that's the first time that I had heard of these mountains. So then back in 2001, I found out about this list in the Lonely Planet Hiking in Japan. And then I found Craig's book and I read his travel log. And I said, well, that sounds interesting as well. I wonder if any other foreigners had done it. And at that time, no one else had done it. So I was like, well, maybe I can be the third person. And when I was climbing the hyakumēzan, I started in 2001. I finished in 2008. So when I finished in 2008, there was one other British person that had finished. I was the first known American, or the first documented American to climb all 100.
Right.
But for listeners, sometimes it's hard to imagine what life was like in Japan in the early part of the 21st century, because in 2001, you have to remember there's no smartphones, no YouTube, no blogs, barely any internet, no information online in English at all, and barely any information online in Japanese about these mountains.
Right.
So it was a real treasure hunt. I think the first thing I did was to buy a wall map of Japan. And then I tried to figure out where all these mountains were located. And then I put pins on each of the mountains on the list and decided to climb them whenever I had a chance. So I was working full time, so mostly climbing during weekends or on holidays. And funnily enough, the very first mountain I climbed in Japan was Mount Fuji, which is kind of, I guess, most visitors' dream is to climb that mountain. I wanted to climb Fuji because not only is it the tallest mountain in Japan, but it's a volcano. And so before I came to Japan, I'm from the States. I grew up on the East Coast in Virginia, and I moved to California when I finished university. So I lived in California about 5 or 6 years. And when I lived in California, I got my first introduction to volcanoes. So I started climbing mountains. I started climbing volcanoes in the northern part of California and in the Cascade Range of Oregon and Washington. So I climbed Mount St. Helens, which erupted in the 1980s, and I've climbed Mount Shasta was probably the hardest one that I climbed, and I climbed Mount Lassen and a couple of other volcanoes. So I was interested in Fuji because it was a volcano and also because it was the tallest. So after I climbed that, then I started looking at the list and saying, well, how can I climb these mountains and what kind of mountains can I string together? But I would say I really started climbing them in earnest probably around 2004 or 2005 when I was really making an effort to climb these mountains. But the first 50 are pretty easy to climb because you have so many choices. So you tend to climb mountains that are near where you are or easy to access. And then as you get closer to 100, you find out it's the more remote and inaccessible and harder mountains that end up being left on the list.
Right.
I would say the interesting thing about climbing them is as you're going to these mountains, apart from Mount Fuji and mountains in the Japan Alps, the other mountains on the list that are a lot more obscure, the only other hikers you'll find are other people also attempting the hyakumēzan. So it became this kind of common link or common identity between the other hikers. So when you met other hikers on the mountain, you would ask, oh, how many have you climbed? How many do you have left? It was a good way of bonding, I guess, with people, with other hikers. And also you can share intel, especially on some of the more difficult or obscure mountains. You can say, oh, I haven't climbed Lishiri yet. What's that mountain like? Or I haven't climbed Podoshiri, or I haven't climbed Echiko-Okoma. Have you climbed that? Can you tell me which route you took? So, because there was no way of finding any information online.
Right.
So nowadays, because of social media and YouTube, and information is ubiquitous, so you can find it pretty much everywhere. But during that time, between 2001 and 2008, there was really no other way of finding out other than searching online, very primitive websites, and calling the bus companies to try to figure out when the bus schedule was going to the trailhead, because there was nothing online. So it was a really interesting time. So I think I just did it as a personal goal. I wasn't really doing it to become famous or anything. I just said, well, I want to climb these mountains. It would be fun to do. I can see Japan by doing it, and, see the beauty of Japan, and also maybe get in shape. So that was kind of the main premise, I suppose. But I think, but nowadays, I think there's a lot of people that are kind of climbing the hyakumēzan, which I think is great. I think it's a bit different in this day and age. It feels more like a stamp rally.
Right. I mean, everything kind of does these days.
Yeah. I guess you can call it bucket list item, or, kind of checking things off because it seems like the thing to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I was the same way, I think during that time when I first came to Japan, I was really drawn to this kind of list. It was like, oh, it's a list, it's a common goal, or it's a goal, I guess, and I can work toward that goal. So I can see why that's kind of, popular. It's the same thing with, like, in Colorado, there's the 14ers, and people make this goal to climb every 14,000 meter or 14,000 foot, mountain in Colorado. So it's a similar kind of list or goal for hikers.
So, like you said that, you said Craig and I forgot the other guy's name.
Oh, Craig and Travis.
Right, Travis. They managed to do it in under 100 days. So I guess that means that there are some mountains that are they're basically like adjacent. They're really close to each other. And so you can do like multiple in one day if you chose to really push yourself.
Yeah, you definitely could. They had the luxury of having a car. So they could climb a mountain in the morning and then drive to the next trailhead.
That makes sense.
I did the majority of them without a car, just because I don't have a driver's license and I can't drive. So some of the mountains I did do with Japanese friends who had cars, and we would drive to the trailhead, especially for some of the more obscure ones. But for most of the mountains, I did it without a car. So what I would do is I would look at the access. Some mountains didn't have good bus access.
Right.
However, there were other routes on the mountain that I said, oh, well, if I climb this longer route, I can get there without taking a bus, or I can get there from the train station. So that kind of worked out. But basically, I just decided, well, I'm not really in a race. They already, Craig and Travis already did it in 78 days. I'm just going to do it during my, time, my free time. So but having said that, because I was limited to basically national holidays or 3-day weekends, I would climb regardless of the weather. So I ended up climbing about a quarter of the mountains in the fog or in the heavy rain with absolutely no view. So had I been more selective, I could have climbed all of them in perfect weather, which may be a good goal for anyone out there thinking about climbing the hyakumēzan. I guess for me, I just wanted to climb each one once. Rather than climbing the same mountain over and over and over, I just wanted to climb each one once to see what, all the prefectures in Japan were like. But yeah.
So are they spread out over all 47 prefectures?
No, there's some prefectures that don't have any, like Okinawa doesn't have any hyakumēzan.
Oh, yeah.
And Fukui has, I don't think, well, there's some mountains that are like on the border. So if you think Ishikawa has Hakusan, but that's also on the border of, of another prefecture. So it's kind of like, well, I don't think there's all 47 because there's no hyakumēzan in Kyoto, for example. No hyakumēzan in Wakayama, no hyakumēzan in Mie. So in Kansai, there's only 3.
Interesting. Wow. Huh.
Yeah. Well, but the author of the book, he's from Ishikawa, so Hokuriku area. So he featured a lot of mountains in like Nagano, Toyama, and up there in Hokuriku. So yeah, it was interesting though to climb all of them and to experience that camaraderie with other hikers, and then that feeling of accomplishment having done them all. So
sure. What about like any particularly unexpected or memorable ones? Like, does anything come to mind?
Yeah, I guess I climbed. So there's a mountain in the northern Alps called Shidouma Dake, and it's right above Hakuba. So Shidouma is another reading of the kanji for Hakuba. So Hakuba is a big ski town, and I went up to climb Shidouma at the very end of the season. So it was mid-October, and it was the last day that the mountain hut was in operation. Mm-hmm. So I decided so some of the mountains I would climb as a day trip, some I would camp, some I would stay at mountain huts. So I decided, okay, I'll stay. I brought my tent with me, but I was like, well, I'll stay in the mountain hut the first night because the weather is not supposed to be very good. So I climbed up, and the weather wasn't good. It was kind of foggy, and then it started raining a little bit. And then when I got to the top, the rain was kind of mixed with snow. So I was like, okay, well, I'm glad I'm staying in the hut. But when I checked into the hut, there was probably, the hut can sleep 1,000 people. And there was probably only about 24 people at most staying in the hut. And so it was easy to talk to everyone else in the hut because we were all in the common room. And there were 2 people playing shogi, and they're like, oh, do you know how to play shogi? Do you know how to play shogi? And I'm like, well, I played chess when I was a kid, but never played shogi. I'm happy to learn. So we had this shogi match in the middle of the hut, and everyone's like crowding around the shogi table, like watching. But I had no idea about the rules because chess is, each piece can move a special way. Same thing with shogi, but the difference with shogi is like when you capture the other person's piece, you can use it in your army. So you can like reintroduce that piece. And so I basically got obliterated, but it was a good cultural experience. And I think that's one of the good things about going into the mountains is you can have these, of course you can experience nature, but you can also experience culture. So that same trip, like I stayed at the hut, and then the next day I decided to climb, like there's the 3 mountains of Shidouma. So the Shidouma Sanzan. So I climbed all 3, and I dropped down, and there's this wild hot spring right at the base, right at the edge of the tree line called Yari Onsen. Uh-huh. And so I descended down to Yari Onsen, and there's a mountain hut there, but they dismantle the mountain hut for the winter so that the avalanches don't sweep it away. Uh-huh. So I arrived at this hut, and the hut was completely dismantled and wrapped in tarp. But the open air hot spring bath was just there, like completely open, completely free, completely deserted. And so I walked down, and originally I was just going to hike down the mountain. And I got to this hot spring, and I was like, I wonder if it's actually hot. So I stuck my hand in, and it was warm. And I was like, all right, I'm camping here tonight. So I camped right next to this hot spring bath. And it was really cold that night, I remember. And every time I was in my tent and sleeping bag. And every time I got cold, I would just jump out and jump into the bath and get warm again. So it was really interesting. But I remember the next morning when I woke up, I unzipped my tent, and it was the most unbelievable thing because there was basically a sea of cloud right in front of me, but the sea of cloud stopped at my tent canopy. So it was so crazy. Like just below me was this sea of cloud, but it was right at tent level. And then above me was clear weather and clear sky. So that's definitely one thing that I will never forget. So sometimes when you climb the mountain, you never know what the weather's going to be like or what the scenery is going to be like. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, this is really amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds really cool. I'm not sure if this was one of the 100 mountains or not, but you've written and talked about an experience you had where you it seems like you got lost in the mountains, and then it seemed like you had to call for help and all that. Could you tell us about that experience?
Sure. Yeah, it was much later. So in Japan, they use the Chinese zodiac for the years. So there's 12. So I decided, I don't know when I decided to do this, but I decided for every animal year, I would climb a mountain that had that animal kanji in it. Oh. So like the year of the horse, I would climb a mountain that had the horse kanji. The year of the rat, there was a mountain for each one of these. So the year of the snake, which was 2013, after I finished the hyakumēzan. So I finished the hyakumēzan in 2008. 2013, year of the snake, there was a peak in Shiga Prefecture called Jatani, which is Snake Valley. That's the translation of the mountain. So my friend who lives in Kyoto, we decided to climb this mountain at the beginning of January. So it was in the middle of winter. We're like, well, it's the year of the snake. Let's climb this snake mountain. This mountain is very poorly marked and not very well used from the route that we took. And the weather was good, but there was a storm expected from basically nightfall. So we had a very short, clear weather window to climb the mountain. And we had no GPS device. And we started late, probably like just before noon for this hike. The perfect recipe for a disaster, as you can see where this is going. So we climbed up. We did have crampons with us. I think, no, we didn't, did we? I can't remember. Now my memory's fading. It's been, 14 years.
It's been a while.
I don't think we did have crampons or maybe simple crampons. I can't remember. Anyway, we weren't adequately prepared. So we climbed up and we did make it to the summit, which was great. On the way down, we got lost. And then so as soon as you get lost, the number one rule is retrace your steps. Just stop where you are, retrace your steps, try to find the trail again. We were in snow and we thought we knew where we were. We we descended into this gully and we said, well, if we just follow the gully down, we'll end up off the mountain, right? Instead of backtracking. So, and we ended up getting more and more lost and we had no GPS. We did have 2013, the iPhones weren't really the best. And so Google Map, my friend had an iPhone with Google Map open, but it would just show your location, but the map was terrible. So basically no GPS, no map. We're lost. And then it starts getting dark. Now my friend had a headlamp and I had this little really weak kind of handheld torch. But it got dark and then the blizzard came and then I took a nasty fall when I kind of slid. And then we ended up just kind of abandoning this gully because we knew it would kill us. And we climbed up to the ridge and then we had cell phone service. So we called the police 110 for actually I think we called 110. Actually, we called my friend in Kyoto and told him we were lost. He called the police. The police called my phone and said, if you need rescue, call 119. So I had to hang up. And then I called 119 and told them basically where we were because there was a blizzard and it was right after New Year's.
Right.
they basically told us to hunker down and wait until morning for rescue.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hung up the phone. Now, luckily, because I was with someone else, I was with my friend, we could make decisions together. I think if I was by myself, it probably would have ended much worse. Because, when you're lost by yourself, you tend to panic and maybe you don't think about things so clearly. So we were kind of, after we called, we were on this ridge and we're just like, well, let's wait here and try to relax. We tried to build a fire, but it didn't really work in the blizzard. And so while we were like trying to figure out what to do, we both realized that if we had followed the instructions and waited until morning, we probably wouldn't make it. Just because we didn't have a emergency bivouac and we didn't have, we had winter clothes, we had down jackets and, warm clothes, but it wasn't really enough. And so while we were like trying to assess what to do, the weather cleared a little bit and then we can see lights down in this village.
Oh.
So then we made a decision, like just go toward those lights. So we dropped off the. I know exactly. It's like, okay. Well, we were dropping off the other side of the gully. The gully was on one side of the ridge. We were dropping down the other side, and so we decided if the terrain got too steep or too dangerous, we would just backtrack. That was our kind of, So we dropped down, and we ended up dropping down further, and the angle wasn't really that bad. And we were hiking through a cedar forest. And we're like, well, if there's a cedar forest, that means that these trees have been planted by someone. There must be a trail or a forest road nearby. So we dropped down and eventually we found a trail and we dropped back and we followed the trail down and it led us into the village where we started our hike. So we got down like just before midnight or just after midnight. So it was a 12-hour affair. So of course we called the cops back and they were like, oh, can you come into the station and do paperwork? And we're like, now? Really? So that's a story for another podcast. But but at the end of the day, we made it out. We made lots of mistakes that got us into trouble, but we also made decisions that saved our lives. So the moral of the story is you're responsible for your own safety in the mountains. Yeah. And don't think that, mountain rescue is really good in Japan. If something happens, they'll save me. They'll try to save you, but you do need to be prepared to stay overnight if something happens. So if you're hiking and you injure yourself or you get lost, sure, you can try to call for rescue, but you also need to have enough supplies that you can take care of yourself if that situation arises. So people were, when we talked about it with our friends and posted on social media, people were quick to blame, you should have had a GPS, you should have. And I was like, yes, we should have. Lesson learned. And I think now we're pretty lucky with the modern age because now with smartphones, there's a lot of smartphone apps, mapping apps that you can use. And also, after that happened, I was like, I never want to hike in the winter again. If I hike in the winter, it's going to be an easy mountain and also a mountain that I've been to before, so you learn things from these kind of situations. So luckily we were given a second chance not to repeat those mistakes, but.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you mentioned, you were with somebody and you already had quite a bit of experience. And so I think you were able to stay calmer than somebody else who would have not had that much experience, right? So there's a number of factors at play there.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, I'll be happy to admit that yes, I did make some bad decisions. My pride is it doesn't really matter about that. It's like, yep, I make decisions. I make mistakes all the time. I'm happy to own up to those mistakes and try not to repeat them. So that's my goal kind of now in life, I suppose.
No, it's better to learn than to be in denial. So
Exactly.
Have you ever had any run-ins with animals or anything like that?
Not really.
Lately, there's been all the bear talk, right? So
yeah, there's been bear talk. I mean, I've been bit by mountain leeches, but that was not on the. Yeah, that was not on the hyakumēzan. There was other mountains. So there's a lot of mountain leeches in Japan, and they don't. I mean, the bites don't really hurt, but they bleed for a long time because when the leeches bite you, they basically release an anticoagulant and you just keep bleeding for a
Oh,
while.
right. Yeah.
And once they kind of get attached, they're kind of hard to remove because you can't tell where the head is and where the tail or the sucker is. So that's kind of annoyance. I mean, have run-ins with hornets, but never been stung. Snakes I've seen plenty of. I was hiking with my friend one time and he almost stepped on a mamushi, which is a viper basically. And those are really poisonous and really dangerous. I've seen wild boar and macaques, and I only saw a bear one time, but it was basically like at the trailhead. I was hiking through this ski resort to find the trail to start the mountain, and the bear was right in the middle of the ski resort, just kind of walking down the ski slope.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't really bother me so much. But now, with all the talk about bears now, I do carry bear spray with me.
Oh, okay.
Which is bear spray is basically pepper spray. So
Mm-hmm.
if I have an encounter with a bear and I get attacked, at least it's something that I have as opposed to my bare hands. If
Sure.
if I see the bear and then the bear kind of stares at me, I have time to pull it out.
Yeah.
But I think it's more like, I think carrying bear spray just gives you a little bit of peace of mind, because otherwise, if you don't have anything, every time you crest a hill on the ridge, you think the bear is going to come out. So you can't really hike. There's just this anxiety the whole time. Like, what if? But, so having the bear spray, I think, helps you relax your peace of mind a little bit. But no big, you do see kamoshka, which are Japanese mountain serows.
Mm-hmm.
And a mountain sero is like a goat antelope kind of creature. But those things are fascinating because when you see them, they'll kind of stop and just stare at you.
Mm-hmm.
And the faces look really unique. They look like they have beards.
Mm.
And so they're just they're the strangest animal that you'll ever see, but also the most like harmless. They won't really attack you. So, but yeah. I guess that's about it for animals. I can't really think of anything else I have been hiking in Japan and I've seen signs in Japanese that say yakenchui, which is beware of feral dogs.
Oh.
So apparently there are some, I guess, dog owners release their pets. Or they escape. I don't really know how it works, but apparently there are feral dogs in the mountains of Japan. So sometimes you'll see that sign, but I've never seen a dog. But apparently they are out there. So yeah, it's interesting.
Okay. Whether you're hiking in Japan or just walking around the city, you know what can be really nice to have? A phone number. That's right, stranger who was not me making a very high-pitched voice. A phone number can be helpful. So if you're interested in getting a SIM card with a Japanese phone number and a data plan for your next trip to Japan, and you want to support what I do, and you want a 10% discount, consider getting your SIM card from mobile.com/TonyJapan. If you use that to get your voice and data plan, you'll get the 10% off. You get the SIM card. You get a Japanese phone number. We all win. So again, mobile.com, mobal.com/TonyJapan. And if you're looking for a new t-shirt, definitely check out mekanekosushi.com. That is my t-shirt shop. I just dropped a new design. It is so good. It is a literal interpretation of the name Mecha Neko Sushi, a robotic sushi cat. It is so good. My friend in Japan, Akihiro Horai, an amazing artist, he did the design. It is so cute, so fun. Check it out. Even if you don't intend to buy it, you should absolutely take a look because it's such a good design. And there's many colors available for this t-shirt. Only $19.99 for the, I think it's up to XL. So, that's USD. After that, it gets a little more expensive because the bigger t-shirts are more expensive. So check that out if you haven't already. It's a great way to get a new t-shirt and support what I do. Just check out mekanekosushi.com. Link in the show notes. All right, let's get back to the show. You mentioned climbing the 47, tallest mountains in Japan. Tell us a little bit about that. Was like, I guess after you were done with the 100, you decided like, what am I going to do next? And that was the conclusion, or like, how did that go?
Pretty much. I mean, it's funny because there's the 100 mountains of Japan. There's also a list of 200 mountains and 300 mountains.
Uh-huh.
So I have a friend in Toyama who climbed all 300 of them. And she was pretty amazing. I was like, wow, you climbed all 300. But since she did it, I was like, well, I don't, I'm not the first foreigner to do it. She kind of is. And also I was like, wow, 300 sounds like a lot. So I was like, well, what if I climb the tallest mountain in every prefecture? So Japan has 47 prefectures. Each prefecture has a highest mountain or a highest point or a highest peak. And I decided to do that. I guess no one had really done it before. And I was like, well, I can be the first foreigner to do that. But when I started researching the list, I realized that there's not 47 mountains because some prefectures share a common mountain.
Oh,
so it'll be like the highest peak in, for example, Shimane and Hiroshima is Osorakan, for example. So if you climb that one mountain, you're killing two birds with one stone, killing two prefectures, climbing two prefectures with one mountain. So I looked at the list and I was like, well, some of them are hyakumēzan, like Mount Fuji, and like Daisen and Tottori. And I was like, well, if I climb these other mountains, it might be kind of interesting. Then I can say I've been to all 47 prefectures because at that time I hadn't really been to Okinawa for hiking. And I was like, well, I really want to go to Okinawa for hiking. What's Okinawa's highest peak? And I was like, oh, it's on Ishigaki Island. I've never been there. So let's go there and do that. So that was part of my motivation, was to go to every prefecture in Japan. So that was my motivation.
Right.
So yeah.
Any fun experiences that stand out from those? Yeah,
I think, the hardest mountain to climb, and this sounds really strange and really silly, but Chiba's highest mountain.
Which Chiba, Chiba does not come to mind at all for mountains.
Well, exactly. Yeah. You know how low Chiba is. Well, Chiba's highest mountain is, Chiba's highest is shorter than the Skytree, and it's smaller or lower than Okinawa's highest mountain. But
okay,
I know exactly. You're like, what? Okinawa has a 500 meter high mountain, and Chiba has 400 meter or whatever it is. But Chiba's highest mountain is in the middle of a military base.
Whoa, okay.
So you need special permission to climb it. So that's why it's so challenging. Like if you just rock up and go to the gate of the military base and said, I'm going to climb the mountain, they're like, no, you're not. Where's your appointment? Right. So you can actually climb it if you make an appointment, but it's just really fun.
Cool.
You have to, you make a reservation. I think when I climbed it, I had to call them. Now you could probably do it online. And, it was one of those things like you can only come between 12 and 12:25 or something. And I mean, the mountain itself, you could pretty much drive to the top.
Yeah.
And you have to have a guide because it's inside an active military base. It's the Jieitai, so it's a self-defense force. They don't want anyone like running around and taking pictures, I guess. And so we had a guide. I went with my friend, and the guide was like, from here to the summit takes about 30 seconds. And I was like, okay, whatever. And so we hiked up to the top and then took our picture and then pretty much left. But that was an interesting experience. It's like, okay, that's nice. But
I love that they let you do that. That is so Japan, and you would never see that in the US.
Yeah, because otherwise, I guess all these people have these broken hearts. I can't climb the highest mountain because one of them is closed. How can we do this? So I think they probably got enough phone calls that they're just like, wait a minute, what is this thing? Oh yeah, this is Chiba's highest. Okay, let's let people in. So that's nice.
Yeah. I mean, that. I don't know, maybe I'm idealizing Japan a little bit, but it kind of comes off as like, they actually respect the mountain and they respect the people for having that passion for about mountains and hiking and appreciating, that area. So I don't know, it sounds really nice to me.
Yeah. And it's a really small military base. I think there's just, on the top, there's probably like, what do you call it? A radar station or something. It's not like a massive, so yeah, that was really interesting to do that. So, but I was really stressing because I was like, how can I climb Chiba's? It's in the middle of a military base. Let me check. And it was like, oh yeah, you can make reservations. Okay. That sounds good. But
cool.
And it's also like right in the middle of Chiba prefecture. So it's hard to get there by public transport. So luckily one of my friends who was living in Chiba decided to climb with me. So we drove there, but that was challenging. But
Cool. All right. Well, that's a very unique experience. Not particularly challenging in terms of the actual hike, but very unique. And you got to time it right, I guess.
yeah, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So what about for people interested in doing some hikes? Like, I mean, we've talked about Fuji. That's the thing that everybody knows. And there's an infinite amount of information about Mount Fuji. Fine. But do you have any, suggestions, general advice, stuff that people might be likely to overlook and that you think should, maybe they should pay more attention to?
That's a good question. I think it depends on your experience in Japan. If you're just here on a tourist visa and you're traveling in Japan and you don't speak any Japanese and can't read any Japanese, I think you should kind of limit yourself to the more popular hikes, because Japan's mountains are really incredibly easy to get lost, and then there's hardly any English signposts at all. And a lot of the lesser known mountains will just have tape as markers, or maybe a very crude sign written in Japanese, kind of handmade. So if you can't read or speak or understand Japanese, you can try to rely on Google Lens, I guess, or, there are apps where you can take a picture and it'll translate it for you. But I think there's a lot of good information online in English about some of the more popular kind of hikes. So apart from Mount Fuji, Japan Alps are amazing. And I highly recommend going there. And there's a lot of information that you can get online. And there's also a Japan Alps guidebook in English that I helped write. So that information is also there if you're interested. There's also, for foreigners, a lot of foreigners tend to go to Kumano-Kodo and also Nakasendo. Those have become really popular recently because those are kind of multi-day kind of hikes. I think a lot of people prefer doing multi-day treks, which I think is good, going from like hut to hut or going from accommodation to accommodation. And so with the Nakasendo and the Kumano-Kodo, it's a lot of information online, especially I think Kumano-Kodo has a really good infrastructure because there's something called Kumano Travel, and they'll book the accommodation for you and they'll give you all the information that you need in English, which I think is a big hurdle for a lot of people traveling to Japan. For people living in Japan, if you can read Japanese, then you have a lot more resources. I guess because of the hiking apps and the map apps, the Japanese app Yamap, YAMAP, has kind of opened up the doors to a lot of mountains, even for me, that I didn't even know existed. Mountains in my neighborhood that I was like, there's a trail up there, really? And so using Yamap is good because it'll show you basically all the mountains that are in your vicinity that you can climb. The one thing that I would recommend for maybe people living in Japan that have an understanding of Japanese is there's other alternative multi-day treks. So there's a Michinoku Trail. I can't even say it now. Up in Tohoku,
Tohoku,
which is a really great multi-day hike along the coast. And there's also a lesser known one is called the Shio no Michi in Nagano, and that's like the Salt Trail, and that's the northern part of Nagano Prefecture, and that's really beautiful because it has a lot of beautiful forests and just really beautiful scenery, and doesn't get a lot of tourists or a lot of travelers even. And so those two are really good. And then if you want a multi-day trek that doesn't have any mountain huts or any support, there's the Takashima Trail, which is basically it runs along the Japan Divide. So the divide is where, on the north side of the mountain, all the water flows to the Japan Sea, and on the south side, it all flows into the Pacific Ocean. So there's a divide that runs between like Kyoto, Fukui, and Shiga, basically. And that's like an 80-kilometer trail. So I did the whole Takashima Trail. I section hiked it. So instead of doing it in one fell swoop. I did it like section by section.
Mm-hmm.
And that was amazing because all the forests were just virgin forest, virgin beach forest, beautiful views, no other hikers, and just really, really beautiful. So, Japan has, by some counts, there's about 15,000 mountains in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many mountains that are just all over the place. But Japan has a lot of planted cedar plantations, cedar and cypress plantations. So for me, I really like going to forests that are hardwood forests that have remained since the old times. And so sometimes those forests are kind of hard to find. But if you can hike in those types of forests, I mean, Hokkaido, most of the forests are not cedar. The only cedar plantations are in the very, very southern tip near Hakodate. So when you're hiking in Hokkaido, everything just feels really lush and really natural. So that's one thing that I really love about Hokkaido's mountains is, apart from the brown bears, is everything just feels really wild. And also the tree line is a lot lower in Hokkaido.
Oh.
So you get up to, basically, usually in the Japan Alps, 2,400 meters or higher is above the tree line, or 2,700 meters and higher for the southern part. But in Hokkaido, it's basically anything above like 1,400 or 1,500 meters is usually in the alpine or above the tree line. So I really like that part of Hokkaido. And also it's a lot cooler in the summer because hiking in Japan in the middle of summer is unbearable.
Yeah.
Unless you go up to higher elevations. So,
right.
Yeah, basically.
What about,
but I mean,
hiking down in like Okinawa, Ishigaki, those areas, like, can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I guess one thing that I haven't really mentioned is I have a website called Hiking in Japan.
Yeah. Tell us.
I started that website in 2007 because there was no English information online. So I decided to basically create an online guide to the hyakumēzan. So there's an English description for every single, mountain on that list of 100. And then I just decided to, do other mountains apart from the hyakumēzan that I found interesting in Japan. So when I went down to Ishigaki, I decided to create on my website a separate section for Okinawa hikes. Mm-hmm. And I just tried to find mountains that look kind of interesting in Ishigaki and hiked around and, introduced those on my website as well. So, because, most people think of Okinawa as like Naha and the main island. But for me, like my favorite part is further down Ishigaki and the surrounding islands are really, really beautiful. So, it's kind of hard to get there because, well, when I went to Ishigaki, it was before they built the new airport. So there were no direct flights. The only way you can get there is you had to go to Naha first and then change.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to, I was like, well, I want to go to Ishigaki, but how can I get there from Osaka? I'll just take the ferry to Naha. So I took the ferry, which took like 2 nights, 3 days or something to get to Naha. But this was, mind you, this was before LCC, right? Now there's a lot of low-cost carriers. You can fly very cheaply now down to Okinawa.
True.
But when I went down there to climb Okinawa's highest mountain, there was only ANA and JAL. So I was like, well, the ferry's a lot cheaper. I'll just go down there by ferry. And so that was really interesting. Went down there by ferry and took the ferry back actually as well. So, but then when I went to Ishigaki, I just flew from Naha to Ishigaki. But the old airport was like really close to the city center. Mm-hmm. So it was really cool because I remember when I flew in, I was like, oh my gosh, this like you're flying over these like houses like right on the edge and you land on this really small airport. So that's why they couldn't accept flights from other parts of Japan because the runway was too short.
Right.
But I remember when I arrived in Ishigaki, I was like, I want to go out to that road that goes right past the airport so I can watch planes land over top of me, and take off over top of me. So I did that. But now they built a new airport, which is much, much bigger, and it's on a more remote part of the island. And so now there's direct flights from everywhere. So I think Ishigaki is a lot more touristy now since when I went there. And then I went to Yonaguni Island as well, which is the closest island to basically Taiwan. Mm-hmm. And when I went to Yonaguni Island, it was before they built the military base there.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of the locals were basically opposed to having the Geitai there, and they were trying to promote peace and saying, we don't want the military there. We want to stay peaceful. But now there's a big military base on the island. So I was kind of fortunate that I can go there before the military buildup on that island. Because, Japan's always changing. They're always building new, missile facilities all over the place and more military. There's been a lot more military spending recently. So, regardless of what your, thoughts are on that issue, it's just something that's a reality. And because of that, Japan is always kind of changing. And also, apart from that, they're always building new buildings and always building new roads. So, mountains are always changing as well because of typhoons and floods and earthquakes. So,
right.
It's kind of interesting, actually.
Yeah. So, of course, anybody interested in all this should check out your website, Hiking in Japan. But do you do like tours or advising or anything like that? Are there any services that you offer?
Yeah, I do travel advising through Japan Travel Consulting. So I consult travelers. My main focus is on hiking. So if people want to come to Japan and they want personalized hiking advice, they can check out that website. Recently, everyone's kind of like, oh, I can just use ChatGPT for advice. And you could do that. Most of the ChatGPT information is just getting it from Reddit. So it's kind of impersonal. And so if you want a more personal and, I guess, human touch to getting advice, you can contact us there. And there's my website, Hiking in Japan, of course, and the guidebook, which is on Cicerone Press, which is a British publication. That guidebook is called Hiking and Trekking in the Japan Alps and Mount Fuji. It came out in 2019. And then as soon as a hike came out, the pandemic hit. And so information changed a lot. So I'm actually working on a second edition of that guidebook now, which will probably be out at the end of the year. It'll basically be in time for 2027. So if you're hiking the Japan Alps this year, you can still pick up the first edition, which all the information is accurate and basically will be really helpful if you want to do that. I also have a YouTube channel, which is Hiking in Japan. My YouTube channel is basically just introducing mountains that I find interesting in Japan. So you can search for that as well. Sometimes when you type in like hiking in Japan, the search function on YouTube is not very good because it's just going to give you all the videos and channels that have like, tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of views. So sometimes it helps like to search hiking in Japan channel or hiking in Japan, Wes Lang. But I mean, if you go to my website, you can find a link to my YouTube and Instagram. Yeah.
I'll include all the links in the show notes, but is your channel like at Hiking in Japan or?
It is, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the easiest, the youtube.com/at Hiking in Japan.
Basically. No spaces, all lowercase, but yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. But all the links are going to be down below, the blog and everything. So anybody that wants to find out more should definitely, check out those links. But yeah, Wes, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, no problem, Tony. And if anyone needs any advice about walking the length of Japan, you should talk to Tony. Because I've never done that, but
well, I've done Tokyo to Kagoshima. I haven't done the north part yet, so the bottom half, I guess.
Yeah, anyone who wants to hike and walk from Tokyo to Kagoshima, contact Tony.
Yeah, we can talk. Thank you.
Exactly.